You are not part of this family anymore. You are out of the will. My father looked me dead in the eye and erased me from his life across the Christmas dinner table. There was no yelling, no drama, just cold, calculated words. No one saw it coming. I didn't cry, though. Instead, I reached under my chair and pulled out a heavy black box. I set it down in front of him and said, "Merry Christmas." I didn't wait for a response. I got up, walked out, and left them alone with the evidence that would cost them everything. But before I tell you what was inside that box, let me take you back to the moment everything changed. It started 3 weeks ago at 11:42 p.m. when I saw the first sign of what my mother had been doing behind my back. It was 11:42 p.m. when the alert buzzed on my phone. A withdrawal of $9,500 from the family trust. Most people would see that as a random number, something insignificant. But in the world I live in, that number had a different meaning. To me, it was a red flag. I knew it wasn't just a coincidence. It was the kind of thing only a trained eye would catch, and I had that eye. As a forensic accountant, I had spent years studying patterns, learning how to track money, and most importantly, how to recognize when something was off. And this was off. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen, the glow from my monitors lighting up the dark room. My hand hovered over the mouse, but it didn't click right away. I wasn't sure if I should be angry or just calm. I had trained myself not to react immediately. That's what people like my mother wanted, a reaction, a slip-up, and I wasn't going to give her that. I pulled up the ledger and started digging. It wasn't the first time I'd seen unusual activity in the accounts, but this was different. The withdrawals weren't just happening in small increments, they were carefully structured. This was no accident. Structuring, or smurfing, as it's called in forensic accounting circles, is when someone intentionally splits a large sum of money into smaller amounts to avoid hitting the $10,000 reporting threshold required by the IRS. It's a federal crime, and it requires intent. This wasn't just a mistake. This was deliberate. I scrolled down, checking the dates, and there it was more withdrawals, all under the $10,000 limit. $9,500, $9,500, $9,500 again. It was like someone was trying to hide the money from me. And who would do that? My own mother. I had to pause for a moment. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the trust she had built around me. Or rather, the lies she had wrapped around me so tightly I almost didn't see them. My entire life, I had been trained to be dependent on her, to believe that she was the only one who could take care of me. She wasn't just stealing from me, she was controlling me. And now it was all coming undone. I dug deeper, checking the accounts she'd accessed and transferring money into her personal ones. It didn't take long for the pattern to emerge. In total, $85,000 had been drained from the trust in less than a month. And it wasn't just about the money, it was about the purpose behind it. As I followed the money trail, I saw where it was going. The wedding venue for my cousin Savannah, the glass estate, a nightmare of modern architecture perched on the edge of a cliff in Malibu. It was everything my mother wanted, beautiful, isolated, and completely inescapable. She loved things like that, places where no one could question her authority, where no one would dare speak up. And that's exactly what she had created for herself, a world built on lies where everything was controlled, including me. But this wasn't just a petty theft, it was money laundering. My mother wasn't just borrowing from me, she was stealing and she was hiding it. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became, not just at her, but at myself. How had I let her do this to me for so long? I could have stopped it right then. I could have frozen the accounts, called the bank, confronted her. I could have saved my inheritance, stopped her before it went too far. But if I did that, it would have just been another family dispute. Another lawsuit she could talk her way out of. I needed more. I needed her to dig herself deeper, to cross a line that no amount of charm could smooth over. So, I did nothing. I let the transaction go through, and I watched as it cleared. I needed the total to hit $100,000. Only then would the stakes be high enough to guarantee real consequences. I wasn't going to save her. I wasn't going to be the good daughter who fixed everything. I was going to let her reveal herself for who she really was. And in doing so, I would have the evidence I needed to destroy her life the way she had tried to destroy mine. I remember sitting back in my chair, sipping my cold coffee as the minutes ticked by. The weight of what I was doing didn't sink in right away. I was too focused on the numbers, too focused on the plan. But as the account balance increased and as I watched the total near $100,000, something shifted inside me. There was no turning back. Once that number hit the threshold, everything would change. The wedding venue was booked, the contract signed, and the money was already moving. My mother thought she was untouchable. She thought she could continue manipulating me and everyone else in the family. But I was about to show her that even the most carefully laid plans can fall apart in the blink of an eye. And this time, it wasn't just about taking back my money. It was about taking back my power. I arrived at the glass estate just as the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the place. From the outside, it looked like something out of a dream. Walls made entirely of glass, blending seamlessly with the vast ocean below. The house, perched on the edge of a cliff, isolated from everything, just like my mother liked it. Beautiful, perfect, untouchable. But I knew better. I knew the cost of this place wasn't just the price of the venue. It was the cost of everything she had taken from me. And the people inside, the guests, laughing, sipping champagne, oblivious to what had really gone on. They were all complicit in the illusion she'd created. I stepped out of the car, the wind whipping around me, tugging at my clothes. But I didn't care. I didn't smooth my hair, didn't bother trying to look polished for them. I wasn't here for any of that. I was here to expose the truth. The truth about the woman who had controlled me my entire life, the woman who thought she could buy her way out of every mistake. As I walked toward the entrance, I saw Savannah, my cousin, standing near the door. She was holding a glass of champagne, laughing with some guests, her custom silk gown shimmering in the light. She looked so confident, so untouchable. But I knew that dress. I'd seen the withdrawal for it just days ago, $12,000 from my trust. The money I should have had. The money my mother had stolen from me and funneled into this wedding. It wasn't just a dress she was wearing. It was my stolen future. I felt a tightness in my chest, but I pushed it down. I couldn't afford to get emotional now. Not with everything on the line. I kept my focus sharp, my eyes scanning the room as I moved past the guests. The entire event seemed so normal, so innocent to the outside world. But I knew the truth. I knew it all. The catering, the extravagant venue, the flowers, the linens. None of it was real. It was all built on lies, and all of it had been bought with money that wasn't mine to give. My mother was there too, of course. holding court near the bar just as she always did. She looked impeccable, her navy blue dress draping elegantly over her form, her eyes scanning the room, always looking for the next person to impress, the next person to manipulate. And when she saw me, her face flashed for just a second, a subtle shift, a glitch in the matrix. Then the mask was back in place, that sickeningly sweet smile. She rushed toward me, her arms open, eager to greet me as though we hadn't just come from a violent family fracture. "Sully, you made it," she cried, pulling me into a hug that was anything but warm. The expensive perfume she wore filled my nose, and I had to force myself not to gag. It was all an act, a performance for the audience, but I could feel the tension in her grip. I could feel her fear. She knew what I was here for. "Mother," I said, keeping my voice level calm. "It's good to see you." Her smile faltered just for a moment, but she recovered quickly, her eyes scanning the room for the approval of the others. She was the perfect actress, playing the role of the loving mother in front of an audience. But I knew her better than that. I knew what she was capable of, what she had already done. And I had come here to make sure everyone else would know too. I didn't need to say much more. My presence here was the message. I was the reminder that everything she had built, all the control she had over me, all the lies she'd fed to the world, it was about to come crashing down. And it was all going to happen. Here, at the Glass estate, surrounded by all of the people she had fooled into thinking she was the perfect mother, the perfect protector. But there was one thing she didn't know. She didn't know that I wasn't the daughter she could control anymore. I wasn't the fragile, unstable girl she had trained everyone to think I was. And I wasn't here to play by her rules. The truth was finally going to be exposed, no matter how hard she tried to bury it beneath all the money, the champagne, and the lies. Malia led me away from the crowd, her grip tightening just enough to leave a mark. She wasn't pulling me in a rush, but the way her fingers dug into my arm told me she was trying to control the moment. The whole thing was a performance, a show for anyone who might be watching, but I wasn't fooled. She smiled brightly at the guests, laughing, playing her part. Then, when we were far enough away, she turned and her expression shifted, her eyes narrowing cold and calculating. We reached the infinity room, a glass cube hanging over the cliff edge. The room seemed designed to keep you suspended in space, suspended in time. The outside world was a blur, the sound of the party muffled by the thick glass walls. The guests could see us perfectly, but they couldn't hear a word. The silence was deafening. Malia wasted no time. As soon as the door slid shut behind us, sealing us in that glass prison, her face went blank, neutral for the audience outside. But her eyes were different. They were sharp, dark, and calculating. She reached into her clutch, pulling out a folded document, smoothing it across the glass table between us. I can see it clearly. It was the conservatorship agreement, the one she had been planning for months, the one that would strip me of everything. "I know you've been looking at the accounts, Sully," she began, her voice cold and calculated. "I know you think you're clever, but tonight you're not a forensic accountant. You're just a patient. You've been acting unstable. You've been erratic, and the doctors are worried about you. This..." She tapped the conservatorship agreement with a well-manicured finger. "This is for your own good." I didn't flinch, didn't react the way she wanted me to. I just looked at the document, then back at her. I wasn't about to play her game. Not anymore. "You're not fooling anyone," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. But the words hung in the air between us, thick with meaning. Malia's eyes flashed a brief moment of frustration. She smiled again, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She picked up a second item from her bag. It was a manila envelope marked confidential. "And here," she said, sliding it toward me, "is the report from Dr. Aris, the psychiatrist I've been working with. He's documented everything, the paranoia, the delusions, the threats of self-harm. According to him, you're in a state of acute psychosis, and if you don't sign this agreement, I'll have no choice but to take you to see him. I'll make sure you're placed in his psychiatric hold." I stared at the envelope, the paper inside, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. I didn't know who Dr. Aris was, but I knew exactly what my mother had done. She had built this entire narrative around me, feeding the idea that I was unstable, that I was the problem, not her. She had planted the seeds of my insanity so deep that even I started to doubt myself sometimes. But not anymore. I wasn't going to be the pawn in her game. She leaned in closer, her breath just a whisper in the silent room. "If you don't sign, Sully," she purred, "I'll have no choice but to call those 2 officers standing by the entrance. I'll show them Dr. Aris's assessment and they'll take you away. You'll be carted out of here in handcuffs in front of everyone. Do you really want to make a scene?" I forced myself to smile, my hands shaking as I reached for the pen she had pushed across the table toward me. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my hand. The trembling wasn't from fear, it was from disgust. Disgust at the way she was trying to manipulate me, disgust at the way she was trying to destroy my life with a single stroke of a pen. But I didn't sign. Instead, I turned the paper over, revealing the blank side. I picked up the pen again, the tip hovering over the paper. My hand shook, less now, the fear draining from my body. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about something bigger, something I could control. I wrote the words carefully, slowly, as if I had all the time in the world. Title 31 U.S. Code Section 5324. The law. A law that prohibited money laundering. A law that made what she had done a federal crime. Malia's face contorted in confusion. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Sign the front, Sully. Stop playing games." But I wasn't playing. I was taking control. "Do you know what a suspicious activity report is, Mother?" I asked, my voice calm, now a stark contrast to the tension that had gripped the room moments before. "It's a document banks are required to file when they see someone attempting to avoid the $10,000 reporting threshold. It's called structuring, and that, Mother, is a felony." Her eyes narrowed as I continued, my fingers ticking off the points. "And because you used my power of attorney to move funds into your personal account to pay for this venue, you also committed wire fraud and aggravated identity theft." I could see her processing the words, the weight of them sinking in. Her face grew paler, the color draining from her cheeks. She was no longer the confident, manipulative mother I had grown up with. She was a woman caught in her own lies, and she knew it. I reached into my purse, pulling out a thick folder, not the flimsy envelope of a greeting card, but a forensic audit report. I slid it across the table, watching her eyes widen as she saw the evidence laid out in front of her. "I didn't come here to negotiate your surrender, Mother," I said quietly. "I came to serve you." I watched as Malia's eyes darted between the folder and me, her hands trembling as she reached for it. She didn't want to see the truth, but it was there right in front of her. The forensic audit report. I had painstakingly compiled the suspicious activity reports. Everything was documented. Every withdrawal, every transfer, every step she had taken to cover her tracks. I had it all, and there was no way out for her now. Her fingers hovered over the pages, but she couldn't bring herself to touch them. The color had drained from her face, and for the first time in years, I saw her lose control. She had always been the one in power, the one who manipulated every situation, always, 2 steps ahead of everyone else. But not this time. This time, the game had changed. I didn't say anything more. I didn't need to. The evidence was right there in black and white. The audit report laid out exactly how she had moved the money, how she had funneled it into her own accounts to pay for Savannah's wedding, to fund her expensive lifestyle at my expense. Every single transaction was accounted for, and every one of those transactions was a crime. Malia's hands shook as she flipped through the report, her lips trembling, but no words came out. She couldn't speak. She couldn't form the lies anymore. There was nothing she could say that would undo what had already been done. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she looked up at me, her face contorted in panic. You can't do this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're my daughter. You can't ruin me. I'm your mother." I didn't flinch. I didn't feel the need to remind her of everything she had done to me. The years of manipulation, the lies, the way she had controlled me, the way she had stolen my future and turned me into a prisoner of her fake concern. I just watched her, calm and collected. For once, I was the one in control. "You're not my guardian anymore, Malia," I said, my voice steady. "You're the subject of an active federal investigation, and no amount of pity or fake concern is going to save you now." Her face twisted with disbelief, and then the full weight of the situation hit her. The panic set in her breath, quickening her eyes, darting around, looking for an escape that didn't exist. But it was too late. The truth was already out. The room seemed to close in on Malia as the weight of the situation finally settled over her. Her panic had escalated to desperation, but there was no escaping the truth. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that her carefully constructed world, the illusion of control she had so meticulously maintained, was falling apart. The people in her life, the friends she had surrounded herself with, all of them, were about to witness the fallout of her actions. Her frantic attempts to deny everything, to twist the truth, to play the victim, only made it worse. The glass walls of the infinity room now felt like a cage trapping her with the evidence she couldn't erase. The sound of the door opening behind us cut through the tension, and in walked Cole, sharp and composed, as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. He didn't look at Malia. His focus was entirely on me. "I am Cole," he said, his voice cold and professional. "Managing partner of Venture Capital Holdings. We own this estate." He paused, letting his words sink in. The final payment for this venue just bounced. Malia's face twisted in disbelief. "That's impossible," she spat, but I could see the fear creeping in. There was money in that account. "Not anymore," I replied, calmly watching as her facade began to crumble. The trust protectors froze every account tied to the trust, including the one you've been stealing from. The truth hit her like a punch. The wedding, the venue, the lavish lifestyle, it was all built on her. Lies, her manipulation. No money meant no wedding, and no wedding meant humiliation. Malia had gambled everything, and now it was all slipping through her fingers. "I'll pay it back," she whispered, but I wasn't buying it anymore. It was too late for apologies. too late for promises. The damage had been done and the law was already involved. Security moved in, clearing the building as the chaos outside began to spill into the room. Guests fled, some shocked, some angry, but no one stayed to defend Malia. She was left standing there alone in her deceit. That was the moment the truth became undeniable. I looked at her one last time before turning away, the weight of what had happened finally sinking in. Later, standing on the balcony with Cole, I watched as the police arrived to take Malia away. The officers cuffed her, and I felt a strange sense of finality. There would be no more pretending, no more manipulation. The silence that followed felt like freedom, not loneliness, but liberation. I'd cut the toxic ties that had bound me for so long, and in doing so, I had reclaimed my life. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let go of the things or people that hold you back. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. As I stood there watching the police take Malia away, I couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought me to this moment. It wasn't just about money or revenge, it was about taking back control of my own life. For too long, I had allowed myself to be manipulated, to be trapped by the lies my mother had woven around me. But in that moment, I realized that the power to change my life was always in my hands. I just had to be brave enough to take it. I know that many of you watching have faced your own struggles, whether with family work or something else. And if you've ever had to cut toxic people out of your life to protect your peace, you're not alone. It's not an easy decision, but sometimes it's the only one that will set you free. If you found yourself in a similar situation, remember this: you have the strength to stand up for yourself. You don't have to keep carrying the weight of someone else's manipulation or deceit. Letting go might be the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it can also be the most liberating. If you're feeling empowered by this story, or if you've ever found the courage to put yourself first, consider subscribing. There's always more to share, and we're all in this together. Stay strong and know that you are not alone.